Call the City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Angeli.
Here.
Vining.
Here.
Germaini.
Here.
Lamore.
Present.
Felder.
Here.
Whitman.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Ask all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We ask for guidance and direction as we come together. Grant us the strength to manage the challenges ahead and the wisdom to identify opportunities as we strive to serve our community.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, first item, please.
The first item would be the opportunity to amend the agenda.
Any amendments to the agenda from council or administration? Seeing none. Next item, please.
Next item is citizen comments not related to an agenda item.
Thank you. There's opportunity for citizens' comments at this time and also at the close of the meeting. So if there's any comments from those present here this evening, not related to an agenda item, now would be the opportunity to speak. Just be mindful that if there's public wishes to speak, rules of the chamber try to keep those comments to 3 minutes, or at least introductory if there's follow-up as well. So if there's anybody who wishes to speak to the council at this time, now would be appropriate, or at the end of the meeting. See no comments. Next item on the agenda is, sorry, clerk, next item please. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The next item is a presentation, the fire station budget update.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. In lieu of not having our work session tonight, I did want to provide City Council an update regarding the fire station project and where it's at. The first part of it, if you flip over to the second page, you'll see an overview of the budget. Our construction manager, George Ock Company, had 27 separate subcontractor bid packages. They're currently under review, and the number that they have at that point is where they think they may end up, but they're still doing some interviews before finalizing that number. And as you look at the number of line items that we have through there, it shows you what essentially what we're looking at for the construction project, a little over $5.2 million. And then you have itemization of additional fees for the city, the $4,800 with architect and engineering, additional architect and engineering fees in there, the land purchase, the bond issue, the FF&E fixtures, furnitures and equipment, and a miscellaneous cost. We also looked in, I'll cover briefly the alternates that are included in that price, which are alternates number 1 and 2. The essence of it is that the project comes at that point an estimate of $6,090,000, $90,000 over what the target of $6 million was. I think we're in a good spot. At one point, we had talked maybe as much as putting $250,000 out of capital improvements to balance what we need to. If you look through up there on the construction-related costs, you'll see a contingency of $212,000. If we manage it properly, we may very well be able to drop underneath that $6 million figure that we have. And so, and then where we do have allowances, I think we've budgeted those conservatively high, so that going forward, I'm comfortable as manager that the project looks like I think it's ready to go forward based on the bids that were received. The significant piece of this is to introduce this to council tonight at our next meeting on August 20th. You will be presented with, from our construction manager, Ock, that a maximum guaranteed price that we would take action on that would formally trigger the project going forward. Although there's an item later on in the agenda, right after this presentation, to proceed with the purchase of the steel. So if you look back onto the first page, you'll see what those 2 bid alternates are. And these are highlighted in your packet, or at least you can see where 3rd Street's highlighted and 2nd Street. The first is the north apron coming off of 2nd Street. We've again, put the alternate in there with the base bid with asphalt. You know, we were concerned that the project may start creeping over the budget, but because of the pricing that we received, we're recommending that it be all concrete with that, and the marginal cost is only $1,760. The second item that we have as far as an alternate is we did not have in the base bid the south parking lot off of 3rd Street. Again, more for visitors there at the station, and certainly if there's in use of the community room. Don't forget, across the street, part of our ownership is the parking lot, but this provides a little closer parking for visitors there. Again, that came a little over $37,500. I included those in the two when we met with the steering committee on Friday. We thought that those were good to go forward with. Alternate 3 is we have essentially retractable overhead doors that similar to what you would see, you know, in most circumstances. What this would be is a bifold door that would open from the side, wouldn't come up, retract up overhead. And so there's, we didn't go forward with that at this point in time. We prefer to evaluate how we come out of the ground with some of the start of the project, which is really where you incur most of your use of your contingency. And then there's also a couple operational related items with that. You know, we know they come out a little bit quicker, but there's also you know, how much quicker, and also the other part of it is you know, the cost associated with if there's a repair. We know one jurisdiction that had those, and somebody bumped them, and it was pretty expensive to repair. And then the last part is with item 4, the apparatus bay. We've been going back and forth with the resinous floor in lieu of the polished concrete. Chief White is very comfortable with the polished concrete based on visiting some other recent fire stations, and felt there was no need to deal with that. He didn't find slipping an issue at all with that, and so we didn't pursue that fourth alternate. But the third one is just kind of held in abeyance, and at some point in time we'll have to make a determination whether to go forward with that. Going forward on the project tonight, obviously the presentation. We are going to ask on the next item is to authorize our construction manager, George Ock Company, to go forth with purchasing the steel for this. There is a 12-week lead time with that in order to keep the project rolling. We a couple-week period, particularly given the time of the year, probably delivery around Thanksgiving, makes a difference as to how much work we can actually get done before the weather really becomes an impediment to the progress of the project. Over the next week, I anticipate Ock will be refining their subcontractor selection and providing us a guaranteed maximum price for your consideration at the next meeting. Project schedule, we will probably look at if approval takes place at the end of at the August 20th meeting, probably a late September for them to mobilize, and some of it may even start sooner with some of the fencing and site preparation that will go with that. We can talk a little bit about the communications end of it. That was a topic that we discussed in detail at our steering committee on Friday about getting the message out about even you know, with a groundbreaking. We may talk a little bit about that later, but also keeping the community aware of what progress is being made with it. And then the last item we talked about was project discipline. A lot of time and effort went into this project and its design, a lot of feedback. And I think, you know, we can certainly come out with a very good project that our community will be proud of, something that's very functional and operational for our fire operation, and then also, you know, I think hitting the target that we had talked about from a budget standpoint. Keep in mind that when this project started, we were looking at a little over $6.8 million. We made some adjustments based on our desire to try and recognize that with DTE there may be not as much money in the future, and so that project came back in, I think, without much you know, functional effect with that. And so while I have $90,000 potentially being transferred, keep it as a soft number. We'll do it if it's needed to be toward the back end of the project. And so with that, certainly I think we're in a good spot to move forward, and be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Vince. Any questions from council? Councilman Michelangeli.
City manager, I'd like to ask the city manager, under additional fees by city, there's $130,000 for land.
Yes.
What's that?
The 120 for purchase, and then going through and doing the phase 1, phase 2, baseline environmental, and probably some of the reporting fees associated.
So we have already purchased the property, we're just reimbursing ourselves?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Now, maybe this is a question for finance director, assistant city manager. I'm assuming once the bonds are issued, there's going to be draws during the construction, and part of that can be invested in terms of the arbitrage. Has there been any calculations on how much interest that we're going to derive that can be offset on some of these alternates?
Well, I think Ed and I were thinking that potentially we may get $50,000, depending on the manner in which it's invested. And again, we haven't prepared Ed and I are smiling because we had this conversation late today. Interest earnings are finally creeping up to where you actually can consider this again as part of the project. But yeah, when you go through a drawdown schedule with the investment, that we may get as much as an additional $50,000. But and the other thing I think just to keep in mind is on the back end of it is I still think the $75,000 that we have for furniture, fixtures, and equipment is a little bit on the light side. So we may have to put some more funding toward that as well.
Okay, I apologize. I wasn't able to go to the meeting on Friday. I was up in the Upper Peninsula on business, but I think I've always maintained that we're going to get one shot to do this. We need to do it right. And I know that in a lot of the new fire stations, the folding doors are incorporated instead of the overhead doors.
Mm-hmm.
So we're so close. I hate to not consider that in the future. When we're talking, we're this close, especially when you're looking at potentially $50,000 in interest. You're looking at $90,000. It's additional 40. We're probably building this over 2 fiscal years, so we put some additional money in capital improvements. So we have some other options.
Yeah, I think we're at a point where, depending on how we manage the contingency and the interest investments, again, from an operational standpoint, if it makes sense, and the funding is still there. And we can't get too far down the road because we'll be back in touch. Patrick and I had talked that we were going to talk with the architect about, okay, at what point do we got to make that determination if we're going to switch? I think we don't want to get too far down there where that opportunity may be lost before the conversation is had.
That's all I had. Thank you, Your Honor.
Other questions from Councilman Lamore?
Yeah, another question for Vince, our city manager. Just, is there a big advantage to having those fold doors versus the overhead doors?
Well, I think, we were talking about it at the meeting. Chief White mentioned they open up quicker. How much are we talking about in terms of time, with that? I mean, that's part of the operational end of it that we would make the assessment on, and certainly.
Well, as far as reliability and maintenance, is there an issue there?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, the one story I heard was, one community went to it and one of the firefighters hit it, and it was a pretty large expense for them to repair. I mean, it's almost, looking at double the cost of the traditional overhead retracting doors versus the bifolds. So, but, I do think that from a, aesthetic standpoint, as well as, I think that we can have a little more information about how quick, what the difference is from time with their opening. So.
Thank you.
Other questions from Council? Councilman Michelangeli.
Yeah, Your Honor, I think the issue with the folding doors versus the overhead doors, I didn't see in the estimate, are we having a standby generator?
Yeah, we've got a generator.
There's a generator in there, because the issue with the overhead versus the folding doors is the generator doesn't work, or if these aren't hooked up to the generator, then the firefighters literally have to manually push the overhead doors up. And the bifold doors are a lot easier to push aside. So it becomes a matter of response time and those issues. But,
We do have the generator.
we do have a generator in here? Okay.
Got the confirmation from Mr. Lewis. I'm thinking, yeah, we talked about it, but it's in there.
Okay.
Other questions for City Manager? Very good. Vince, any final comments, or?
Nope, if I might just be able to move on to the next item, which is, we are, because again, part of it is we feel from city administration confident about moving forward with the project. One of the requests that came from the project manager with AUK was whether it was feasible for us to provide them the authorization to go forth and order the steel. There's a 12-week lead time with it. They still got to do some shop drawing reviews before going forward with that. You know, we're pretty comfortable and confident going forward with the project. And again, if you put the order in or start the process now, you're probably looking at delivery sometime before Thanksgiving, which is, you know, I think significant enough, especially for this type of work, for the iron workers to show up, whether it's before Thanksgiving or early mid-December. So again, we do have allowances in there for the masons for heating when they're doing their work, so that everything cures properly. And but I think this is a function of the lead time and when we anticipate the iron workers will be ready to come on site. And it's built into the cost already with one of the steel as being one of the 27 subcontracts that we have out there.
So with that background, in case there's questions, it's next on the agenda under council action, so maybe next item please, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay.
The next item is under council action, item 2119, subcontract approval for steel purchase, new fire station number 1.
Thank you.
Would you like to be repeat?
No, I don't think you need to repeat, but it did tie to the previous conversation, so I think it was appropriate to continue. But before we get into any dialogue or questions, I thought we should do it under council action. And of course, it requires some action here by the council. Now, if there's any comments from council, if not, then let's start the process. Councilman Nicolai.
Your Honor, I have one question. I think I asked this a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. How much are we paying in addition, extra for steel because of the tariffs?
I don't think we know.
No.
We don't know.
No. We didn't ask them how much additional it was with it. I will tell you, I was a little apprehensive when the bids were coming in, but clearly we hit the mark. I don't know if Mr. Lewis had heard anything from additional.
No, we can find the answer out though.
Yeah.
What their original estimate.
I'd really like to find out. I think that we need, these decisions that are made nationally eventually filter down to
Yeah.
the local level. And people are going to start paying for some of these decisions, and one of them is steel. So it'd be nice if we could get from the contractor what he thinks is the estimate is of the increased cost due to the steel tariffs.
We'll follow. Yeah.
Okay. With that said, Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we authorize the city's construction manager at risk, George Auck, to enter into a purchase order for the lowest responsible bidder for the steel contract package in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kalonji, supported by Councilman Lamore on item 2119, the subcontract approval for the steel purchase of Fire Station 1. Any further comments from council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Nicolangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 2053, purchase of new public services department Vector truck.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu?
Thank you, Your Honor. As you know, in our last work session, we discussed city administration's recommendation to go forward with purchasing a new Vector truck for the Public Services Department. We're recommending a purchase order in the amount of $424,733 be awarded to Frederick Supply for the purchase of this 12-yard sewer cleaning Vector truck, and that we go forward with it, putting another additional few $1,000s up to a $430,000 if there's some additional things that we need to take care of to handle the closing of the purchase. So.
Questions for the city manager? See none. The council action needs a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we authorize the purchase of a Vector truck from Frederickson Supply in the amount of $424,730.33 with the authorized contingency up to $430,000.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kalanick, supported by Councilman Lamore. And item 2053, the purchase of the new factory truck as stated. I'm just going to make a brief comment of that. I appreciate the background and the previous conversations at the work session to get the information to us. We can try to start seeing how that fits in the overall, but that's just my comment about the work sessions providing us with some information as well. Other comments? Seeing none? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Nicoangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and under item B, approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,180,062.24. 1180062.24.
Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion?
Your Honor, 2109 and 2116.
Other items on the consent agenda council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Seeing none, are there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing no further, motion will be in order.
Your Honor, I motion that all items not pulled from the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, and the recommendations be carried out.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore. Those items not pulled for further discussion on the consent agenda be accepted and the recommendations carried out. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Nicoangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
Next item is item 2109, Fall Leaf Bag Purchase Bid Award.
Councilman Michelangelo.
Your Honor, I had a question for Mr. Lewis.
Okay.
Patrick, over the last 3 or 4 years, when this has come up on the agenda, we usually buy around 72,000 bags. It seemed like the last 2 years, the bags went real fast, and I'm just wondering, are you getting any comments from residents that they did not get an opportunity to pick bags up?
Honorable Mayor and Council, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. I suppose the answer to that question is some, but frankly, I don't know. Last year we did a different distribution method. We actually had them on Saturdays at DPS. We had them where you could actually drive right into the forestry area in the front. Didn't even have to get out of your car, and we just loaded them in for you. And I think we did 2 weeknights a week. It ended up where we had them every Saturday in October and 2 nights a week and every week in October after the first Saturday. I think the first Saturday was fairly early. So I don't think we really ran out any earlier last year than we had the previous years when we had the distribution at City Hall. It's a mixed bag. Most people seem satisfied that the city's still providing the service. Some, you could give out 200 bags of residents and they still wouldn't feel like they got enough. They still want to have more. So I didn't hear a lot of comments that there weren't ample opportunities to come down. It was just that when we were limiting them to 50 bags per stop, per time down, that was a little bit problematic for a few, but that's been our policy more or less for years to sort of try to limit those, make sure everybody gets them. And in fact, I think this question's come up before, like if we give out 50 bags per residence, we still don't have enough for everyone, but not everyone bags their leaves either. So I think if you're going to give 50 bags per residence times somewhere in the order of 7,000 residents, you'd be looking at 350,000 bags if everyone were to get 50. So I don't want to say we have gotten no comments, because around that time of year we do get comments, but I don't think it's substantial. I think most people feel that, especially when we're doing them on weeknights and on Saturdays now, most people can find one Saturday free in October to get down there and get their free bags. So that's sort of a long-winded way of answering your question, but that's my best attempt.
Okay, I guess the question I have, or maybe the observation that I have, is that historically, and this is probably, I don't know how long the city's been requiring people to bag their leaves, but it used to be, for a number of years, people would rake their leaves to the curb and they'd get picked up. And I'm not advocating that we go back to that, but that was a service that we provided residents, and now we require residents to bag the leaves. And I think we talked about this a couple of years ago. We completed the tree survey, and we know what the canopy cover is, and we know that a lot of the older neighborhoods have a lot of mature trees that 25 or 50 bags are not going to bag all the leaves that they have. Whereas in some of the newer neighborhoods on the northwest side of town,
You don't need that many.
they don't need that many. So I guess where I'm going is I would hate to see residents not only get their 50 bags, but then have to go out to Lowe's or Ace or whatever and buy additional bags because we're not providing enough. And I don't know how to, and maybe the way to accomplish it this year is in October. I think last year we extended the collection until, the first week in December?
It was the second week in
Second
December.
week
The
in
year
December.
before, it was the third week in December until it snowed.
And so maybe in the month of November and December, if the administration doesn't want to do it, I'll be happy to do it. Just drive around town and see how many Lowe's bags or how many Ace Hardware bags there are instead of City of Monroe bags to see if we're not providing enough bags to residents. I just concerned about making sure that we provide the residents access to enough bags to bag their leaves. That's all.
Yeah, no, and I understand. And Councilman, I do remember a year ago you mentioning the tree survey and the possibility that we could get around and maybe make accommodations for certain streets and things like that. Unfortunately, we just haven't had the time. We haven't gotten back to it. We haven't made it a priority to do that. Like the S streets are a great example. Those are neighborhoods that have big, tall oak trees. 150 bags wouldn't be enough for some of those residents. So I apologize. We haven't made it a priority to come up with some meaningful way to do that didn't make it too difficult on our clerks trying to figure out, okay, your street is here, you get this many bags. So getting real finite with that is difficult.
Okay.
I do remember you making that comment a year ago. So
Thank you.
Just as a follow-up, because I think it would be difficult, though it's not to say we can't make the attempt to try to figure out how many bags at whether it be a location, a residence, a person. I know my neighbor across the street, he never takes the bags and always goes and buys them at Lowe's or somewhere else. I said, well, you can get them from the city. He goes, that's okay, I'll get them myself. So I'm trying to balance that. And then the purpose and intent for the leaf bags is to rake leaves and put them in there when many will do their yard waste and fill the bags. So I understand, Councilman, where you're going is we'll make sure we have enough service for the residents. And how we measure that or how we kind of monitor that to see that we're actually having the right number. We see bags out from years previously, and that's okay because sometimes you have a couple extra and you start the year off with a 2015 bag. That's fine. They use them. So how we measure that, I think, is as Patrick says, probably going to be a challenge, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't attempt to figure that out too, to make sure we have enough bags.
And one comment I'd like to make too, just on yard waste collection in general and leaf collection in general, and I know this doesn't work for fall leaves because they all come at once and they come in big piles, but you can have yard waste stickers on your trash cans, and those are picked, and that's what a lot of people do for year-round collection, where you might have 4 or 5 trash cans and you can put them out every week, they'll dump them, return your can to you. But again, when the leaves fall, you can't expect people to buy 50 trash cans either. So I recognize there's a practical upper limit to that in the fall. So, and the magic number of 72,000, somebody may wonder where that came about. That's basically a truckload. So somewhere down the line, and I think the answer to that is we've started providing the bags. It was either 2005 or 2006, and I think that we did do some curbside leaves. So it's been over 10 years now that we've been doing the bags. So just to close the loop on a couple of those questions.
So I think our tree inventory and where it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago and where it is today might be a criteria to say whether there's actually more or equal number of trees. And of course, as they mature, you're going to get more leaves as well. And maybe some of that analysis, maybe some of the staff can just, in their casual view, help us with that as well.
Yeah.
Very good.
We'll try and make the effort to do that when we can, and we'll attempt to do that this fall.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks.
Other questions on this for Patrick? If not,
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we award the leaf bag contract to Dano Group in the amount of $27,936.
Second.
motion by Councilman Akalangi, supported by Councilman Lamore on item 2109, the leaf bag purchase bid award. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Echoangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item number 2116, Fixed Program Bid Awards.
Councilman Michelangelo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Question for Mr. Green. Jeff, I was under the understanding that we had a resident over on St. Mary's
Yes,
that was going to be part of the fixed program.
yes.
Has anything come of that contract?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
Not at this
Okay.
time. Mr. Mayor, Jeffrey Green, and members of council, Jeffrey Green, Director of Community Development. We have continued discussions with the applicant, and there was some recent discussion between Matt Wallace, the planner that handles CDBG for our department, with her, and I think we were trying to work out final details. But we're kind of holding that aside and to make sure that if it's ready to go forward, it goes forward.
Is there, because there are other people on the fixed list, is there going to be a point in time where there's a drop dead date so other people have access to the funds?
We've had discussion with that, but at this point in time, we're still trying to finish off that project. We'd like to get that one done. And it's been well over a year now that we've been working on it.
But no contract.
No contract at this point in time. And again, we have been ready to go since last December with the contract, so as a staff in the city.
Is there going to be a point where either the city manager or yourself come to council and say, we've got to move on to another project?
I would assume that point will come, and that will be a discussion that Mr. Pastu and I will bring up again, and we'll, I guess, make a determination on.
Okay, I mean, I think it's fair. We've committed funds.
Yeah.
But I think if the resident is not willing to sign the contract and move forward, we shouldn't hold the funds up to other people on the list that are looking at using these funds.
Yeah. It is certainly a topic that we've had discussion.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's my thought as a follow-up to that is those funds that are, I won't say set aside, but for that discussion, is that this year's CDBG funds or previous year? And is there a time limit to the federal government of that expenditure that might impact that as well? Because I don't remember. I know we've...
Yeah, I think we're able to carry those funds forward, but again, it does stop another person that may be in need of something, and some of the needs are very, very real. Not that this applicants aren't, but some of them might be a furnace that's out in wintertime, and we've tried to revamp the program so that it addresses those immediate needs and not simply put in a line everyone as they come in and apply, but it really is on an as-needed basis in the type of project that they're working on.
Okay. So, Your Honor, my last comment, I'll let you and the city manager determine what that drop dead date's going to be. Okay, and then you'll just have to let us know. Great.
I'm sure we'll do that.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we authorize staff to take the necessary steps to complete the projects in terms of the federal regulations, including drafting of agreements to be signed by the homeowners for Peter Street, Toll Street, and Walnut Street projects under the fixed program.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Lamore on the item 2116, the fixed program bid awards be accepted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Echoangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
I have no other items, Your Honor.
Further items, council comments, Councilman Michelangelo.
Thank you, Your
We'll
Honor.
start with you.
I just have a few.
Okay.
First one is just kind of an administrative thing. I don't see Jody here this evening, but maybe Vince can pass this on. I went on the website to look for the downtown master plan, and I noticed that under the city's website, under government, all of the different agencies, the Brownfield Authority, Planning Commission, all those guys were all listed, but the Downtown Development Authority wasn't listed.
Okay.
Okay? Which meant I had to go to the Downtown Development Authority site. Now, I know how to get there, but if a resident was looking, they may not know that there's a separate Downtown Development Authority website. So I just thought I'd mention that. Now, in regards to the Downtown Development Action Plan, I know that we had a presentation by Mr. Strader and Mr. Gibbs on the results. I happened to read through the plan. I took a look at the Downtown Action Plan, and there's a couple of immediate things that they're recommending. And they have to deal with traffic, and they have to deal with the feasibility of analyzing the conversion of one-way streets to two-way streets. So the question I have is, where is that in the timeline? They said immediate, 0 to 1 year. So
Well, it's already initiated on the, looking at Cass and Harrison, to starting with that, and before the Traffic Control Committee. Actually, I'll have asked Mr. Lewis it was just on there a week ago, I believe. And then the other part of the second step would be looking at front in First Street, once that's in place.
Certainly, again, Honorable Mayor and Council, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. Yes, actually, the Traffic Committee minutes that you just approved this evening from the meeting called for me to send out the surveys to the Cass and Harrison residents so that we can get some idea, some opinion of where they stand. Now, obviously, that's the smaller of the two conversions. That's the one that we thought we'd start with, because those don't require, I shouldn't say any geometric changes, but very few geometric changes. In other words, we don't have to physically modify curb lines on those two. So, as it mentions in the Traffic Committee agenda packet, we did actually survey those fairly early in my career here, and it was more split than you might think. It was fairly close. It was like a third didn't care, a third were in favor, and a third were opposed to it at that time. So we expect that there will probably be some buy-in for that. But the first step is sending the surveys out. We're intending to have those back for the September Traffic Committee meeting, and then we'll decide how to proceed on that one. As for the First and Front Street thing, I think we're going to talk about that when the Cass Harrison surveys are in, and leading into our capital improvements program for next year, because anything on Front and First would necessarily require some degree of capital expenditure. As you know, the streetscapes are built with some of those one-way streets channeling into certain other approaches. So that's where we are in the process. We'll continue to move that, but due to those timelines, that's where we stand for right now.
Your Honor, let me just follow up with the questions. Does it make sense from a traffic engineering and planning point of view that we conduct a synchro model of how the streets are going to operate on Cass Harrison Front and First, and I would also throw in, while we're doing it, 7th and 8th Street, to see, based on a synchro model, what the level of service impacts are going to be. So we have a plan. We have it mapped out. So when the question is asked, what does this mean to me, we can tell them that we've had it modeled.
Mm-hmm. In answer to that, I'll answer that question the best I can. I hadn't thought of that specifically with Cass and Harrison. I would say from Cass and Harrison, it's not so much a level of service question based on the amount of traffic that's using those now, but the second part of that question would be, if Monroe Street were able to go to 3 lanes, if that is implemented, what's the traffic shift? I think it would behoove us to do. We're certainly going to have to do that as a part of that broader model there. 7th and 8th, we hadn't really factored that into the discussion yet. I'm not opposed to that. My assertion with the downtown master plan, and this is just my personal opinion, is that probably if it's the direction that the powers that be want to go, my recommendation is to model both the one-way to two-way conversions and the Monroe Street thing at the same time, because you're going to have to go to MDOT either way. And if you were to do the two-way conversion first and then come back and do Monroe Street, you're going to be looking at 2 different signal modifications on both of those. And we'd be essentially paying twice if we were to stage that. So I guess I'll leave it up to further discussion at the traffic committee level and the council. Again, that's just me off the cuff. As far as exactly where we want to go and in what order those should be, if it's phased, if it's all at once. Risk with all at once is you risk kind of killing the whole thing if there's pieces of it that might work and pieces of it that don't. But I hadn't really thought about the possibility of a synchro model for Cass and Harrison Street, but we do have some baseline modeling in already for Monroe Street, so I think adding on to those wouldn't be terribly difficult.
Well, Your Honor, historically 7th and 8th Street were two-way, and they went one way. When people ask why were they one way, it was because at the end of 7th Street, where Woodcraft Square is, you had Lazy Boy as a factory, and you had you had the West Side Consolidated plant, paper plant, and you had steel castings. So there was a number of employees that went to work that way, and the one-way streets were set up to let people go to work and come home. Well, those businesses, those industries are no longer there. But my thought is if we're gonna do this, why do it piecemeal? Why not just run a model for the whole thing to see if it's gonna work?
We can take that into consideration. Let me think about the 7th and 8th Street conundrum. I'm not sure if it's related to the downtown master plan or not, but I can tell you the traffic volumes on both 7th and 8th are high enough that I have a suspicion it would be problematic for the people on 7th Street, because that you would probably see a pretty big shift from 8th to 7th.
Well, no, but the other part of it is with a two-way street system, you're distributing the flow to two streets rather than on one. The best traffic plan for a community is a two-way grid system.
Yes.
I mean, a two-way grid system is the preferred traffic plan. So when you put one-way streets in, then you can increase the traffic on a street because you're directing all of the traffic in that direction on one street rather than divide it up into multiple routes.
And I would generally agree with you, other than the fact that only one of those continues beyond Union Street, and that's 7th. So the people coming from the west would dump into the grid at that point, and the tendency would to continue on 7th Street, whereas now they're forced down to 8th. So that would be the only thing I think you might get some pushback from the adjacent residents. But as you know, I'm open to all of this. So we'll put this in the traffic committee's lap for September to start talking about extending that, including those streets into the mix, and whether we want to request, for example, capital improvements funding for a model. Again, if it's over $10,000 in a 5-year benefit, it should go through the capital improvements process. But that's the target date of the September traffic committee meeting, is getting out in front of that so that we can take those next steps.
Your Honor, I mean, I'll ask the city manager. I mean, this is being done as part of the downtown master plan implementation.
Yes.
So the question I have is, why isn't the Downtown Development Authority paying for the traffic study? Why do we have to run it through CIP and wait another year? Because the capital improvements project, if it's approved, is not going to go into effect until July of 2019. We've wasted from this point out, we've wasted 11 months just waiting for the funding when Downtown Development Authority has a fairly good fund balance. They could fund a traffic study.
There is a healthy fund balance there. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't thought about doing the synchro modeling for front and first. I was thinking that after we do Harrison and Cass, then we'll work at making those changes there and whatever geometric modifications we have. With the idea, once those are kind of established, then we do the whole thing with Monroe Street. Once those are established, people are familiar with them, and rather than do it on the front end with doing Monroe and first in front. My worry is that we probably get a better understanding of how the first and front would start functioning before we jump into Monroe, and I think it's a big jump. I sometimes worry that put it all together, it may not come out the way it would once people get familiar with it. But we can talk further a little bit about that. And you're right, there is some funding in the EA budget for that. So, all right, it's not in the budget. They've got plenty of fund balance. Yeah. So.
I guess, Val, because I sit on the traffic committee and of course the DDA, and DDA is making already has made some shifts regarding the fund balance and projections over this year and next year, what some of those capital type improvements will be. This is not one that came up, but the discussion about shifting from one-ways to two-way streets has been discussed at the DDA as well. Maybe that's something as we look at what the fund balance and then projected expenditures are in the upcoming year. Maybe Annette can assist us with that, and as a follow-up, so we know where we are exactly going into this year and next. The traffic committee, it might have been the zoning committee, because I know this conversation about 7th and 8th was shared about how and why it was two ways, went to one way, just as the councilman said, is the same recollection I have as a conversation. One thing I will say about the traffic committee, when it was presented about Cass and Harrison, and it was shared that looking at first and front streets as well, that the idea is it is a overall comprehensive traffic plan, not just looking at one street or two. So, Councilman, that you're looking at that broad perspective of how all they're going to work. That was discussed at the traffic committee. So, I know they recognize the others are coming, And I think it's time, as September comes around, the meeting to approach it in that fashion. Do we include other streets with the two we're doing, whether it be 7th, 8th, Front, First, and then how do we make, because we want to see what's going to happen there will then impact what we do with the other discussions within the downtown plan on the streets. And I understand why putting it together, you don't want to pay twice for something. That's a good point. But maybe it's something we look at as how do we put it all together, so.
Well,
Good points.
the other thing, Your Honor, just, based on the action that we took 2 weeks ago to do the Lazy Boy study, part of that is Manick and Smith is a sub-consultant, and they're going to be taking a look at the traffic issues on Telegraph and Stewart. And so it seems like we just have this network that is out there that you could analyze together. That's all I'm getting at. Instead of doing it piecemeal, do it as a total network to really find out what's going to happen.
I'm sure we could still use the 2014 model from Monroe Street that Hubble, Roth, and Clark did for us and build on that, so I don't think it would be unreasonable to get a proposal from them and Manick and Smith. So we can, I'm open to all discussions and possibilities on this. I'm just giving you an update on where we are today, and if the direction is to go elsewhere or faster, slower, I'm more than willing to do that.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Vining.
No comment, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Serene.
I just want to say that almost 2 weeks ago, we had the Shout concert downtown, the Ducky Dash, and the streets were filled with families, and it was great to see everything aflutter. And second, I want to say, get out and vote tomorrow, please. That's all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Moore.
Yes, Your Honor. Speaking of the master plan, I want to welcome everybody to an open house on East Front Street. Come visit the East Front Street businesses between Macomb and Washington Streets to see the businesses and to enjoy a hot dog or slice of pizza. And the downtown master plan will be available to look at. So if you want to see what it looks like, please stop down. I believe a city employee will be there to represent and show that as well. Also, there's an open house on Wednesday the 8th at Lyceum Academy, which is the old Riverside Elementary. Once again, that's an open house there. It's a new learning place where Monroe Public Schools is sponsoring them, I believe. So just wanted to make people aware of that as well. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
I would just like to echo Councilwoman Germani's sentiments regarding the turnout at the Ducky Dash and the downtown jazz series and the Shout concert. It was really wonderful. I just want to thank the businesses and everyone involved for putting that on. We also had a wonderful turnout at the River Raisin Legacy river cleanup, and that's been since our last meeting. So thank you to everyone who came there. I think we accomplished a lot. It was a huge turnout. It was a wonderful event. I also hope everyone had a good time at the fair. That was, I think, encompassing many of our weeks last week. Several traffic concerns have been brought to my attention within the community regarding a couple of major intersections in town, and also some pedestrian and cyclist crossing of North Custer. In the interim, I plan to discuss, I have discussed and plan to continue to discuss some long-term solutions with the city manager, and hopefully something comes before council at some point. But in the interim, just be careful driving on North Custer. Watch for pedestrians, watch for cyclists. I saw two cyclists and a runner this morning on my way to work. So just be cautious at those intersections and on that road. There was also a concern within the community about the DTE sub-area plan and the reasons and need for why we engaged in that. I had hoped it would be pretty straightforward, that we wouldn't want half the commercial property on the north side of Telegraph sitting vacant any longer than it absolutely had to. I certainly see some value there. It allows a plan to be developed both for any developer wanting to come in and do something with that property, to give them groundwork, and also give us some idea of what we find is the highest and best use for that property. I think that's important. I think it benefits us. I think it benefits the business that will one day inhabit that facility. With the loss in tax revenue from DTE, I think that we really need to be concerned with the types of businesses and the labor that is going to be attached to the employment opportunities that they bring to our town, and that we need to be concerned with that. If the city manager or Mr. Green wanted to expand on the reasons for why we engage in that, I mean, they certainly could. I had my reasons for voting for it, so.
Mr. Bastu?
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, I think going forward with the sub-area plan there at the Lazy Boy site, fortunately, we've got a great corporation in our community that cares about our community, and clearly from our end of it, the important thing is to find the long-term highest and best use for that property. A significant element of that process is a market analysis that will define really what the market will bear from a development standpoint, and as we proceed through the sub-area plan, our land use plan will go in concert with what the market will bear, while addressing some of the conditions on the site that we're aware of, such as we have a drain that runs through the middle of the Mason Run drain, runs through the middle of the building. We've got a traffic light and almost 30,000 vehicles per day going just less than a quarter mile away. And how do we make the best use of that? I know that the one offer that they had received, that the rezoning was turned down here because it didn't fit with, it wasn't a permitted use or in the master plan, was a storage facility that would have very limited employment, and given a 25-acre parcel with 30,000 vehicles going by, I think that we all agreed that there probably is a better and higher use long-term for it. So the sub-area plan will bear that out. What the market will tell us is doable, and then coordinate with our land use plan for that site going forward, so that when a future developer is interested, and hopefully soon, that the plan approval will be expedited through not only the city planning commission, but also the Frenchtown planning commission as well.
Thank you. I just hope that in the future, when residents of the city of Monroe or of neighboring communities that are concerned about the issues that we are undertaking have questions or concerns or comments regarding the action that we are taking here, that they feel free to contact us. We developed a new website. I hope that you feel free to use it. All of our contact information is there. Feel free to seek it out. Feel free to contact us. Let us know what you think. If you have a question on it, ask us and we'll tell you why we did what we did. Or if you want action taken on an issue, let us know that. But to read about it in the paper when I didn't see anything in my inbox, it's just kind of frustrating. And I just hope that people feel open to doing that. You're not bothering any of us. We all signed up for it. Lastly, just the election is tomorrow, the primary is tomorrow. I hope that everyone takes the time to go vote. Please budget your time to do so, so that you're not scrambling to fit it in at the end of the day. Thank you, Honor. That's all my comments.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilwoman Whitman.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Lewis.
I think you've all just been missing me.
I
It's
did
been a
miss
few
you.
meetings now.
But this has been on my mind, wondering what is going to happen with the city of Monroe and our recycling. It's affecting other cities.
Yes, I'll let the city manager answer that, because we have something coming up here in 2 weeks.
Yes, at our August 20th work session, Mike Sapo, who was the consultant that we used in developing our RFP for the process last year for the refuse recycling and yard waste program, is going to be here talking about what's going on in the industry. You received the letter that I received from Waste Management, and so it'll give you insight as to where the industry is, and that's about it. You can discuss and think about it and ponder what action, if any, you wish to undertake. But we thought it's such a significant change in the market that's been taking place that it's probably good to have the council informed as to, what the current status of recycling products, particularly with China, dropping out of the market at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Why did China drop out of the market?
Mr. Sapo will tell us in a couple of weeks.
That's the only question I have, really. I am looking forward to this weekend with the art festival and the jazz festival. And I'm very happy about all the things that are going on in the city of Monroe. This is, it's been a very enjoyable summer. And I think that's all that I have, except that I hope to see all of you voting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, most of the comments have been, Councilman, do you have a
Can I
follow-up?
add one thing,
Sure.
Your Honor? Paula's, or actually Andrew's comments refresh my memory. I too have had some residents that have asked me, and not in a negative way, but just kind of clarifying some of the things that council's been doing, because we've been approving a lot of projects. I would like to have the city administration evaluate. You know, we have Facebook, we have websites, we have the Monroe Evening News, but I don't think residents in today's world, there's so many different avenues that I don't think really, I think people are less informed today than they had been 15 years ago. And I'm just wondering if we're going to get to a point where maybe once a year, like with the winter tax bill, we just stick in an 11 by 17 folded printed newsletter that says these are all the accomplishments or these are all the things that the city is doing. And just in a very simple but not a very long way, just to kind of paint the picture of all the projects that are going on. Because they're just seeing bits and pieces. And there are questions. So, and that's why, you know, we get comments. But, you know, our Facebook posts they're timely, but they're not, we don't explain a lot in terms of our projects. The evening news does a good job of covering us, but a lot of people aren't reading the newspaper any longer, unfortunately. And people aren't, you know, if they don't go to the city's website or, you know, and look around, there's nothing that's in a very concise area that says these are the things that are going on. So I really think we have to kind of go back and start using printed material in order to get the word out. So Councilman Felder kind of, one of the things I wanted to bring up this evening was maybe taking a look at the opportunity to at least do a very small but very focused community newsletter on the various projects that are ongoing.
Ms. Egan will be at our next work session as well. We're talking a little bit about our citizen reporting system and the rollout that's going with that. So, along with probably some of the communication with the fire station project with the city council on that. So she'll be here and we can talk a little bit more about that as well. So,
But there's a ton going on.
yeah.
And I think we just need to communicate it to folks.
Sometimes I internally need to communicate with her because there's so much going on.
That's all I have here. Thank you.
Well, I'll start in reverse. I'll start with Lazy Boy then. You know, I think that through, and I know that there's, I get comments as well, and I think most are looking to what the questions are about and our engagement with that, and most, in my opinion, are positive. You know, from the Monroe News, there was at least 3 articles that have been written on that. The Monroe County Radio, I know, has done comments as well as a day's broadcast on that. You know, the electronic side, who watches what, or who reads and follows what, and how do you get it all there? And I think so. I look forward to Ms. Egan being here to get her recommendations of how we do that at a comprehensive, a large perspective that needs to be, because there'll be those that will only follow the one path and won't be in it all of them. How do you really get that message there? So maybe we'll come up with some suggestions or recommendations that we could follow up on, whether it be the newsletter or other electronic messaging. Facebook is what it is, and at times you can have actually good information put out, but then it starts a banter that seems to go the opposite direction at times. But I think we have to look at all possibilities there. The events were all mentioned that were well. I just want to talk about the river cleanup. I want to thank the Commission on the Environment and Water Quality and Barry Leroy and his leadership of getting that done, but most of all the residents and non-residents that came down and helped out on that day. It's just a great event. We also had here a week ago the Labor Park Open House comments. There was a nice turnout from residents and others that gave their thoughts on that, so we look forward to that coming back from the design team. Some really good conversation for those that were there throughout the community. Weekend activities were mentioned for this week on the Jazz and Art Festival. Future event, I'm going to mention it now because it's down the road. We'll have another chance to talk about it next meeting, but really want to get people thinking that opportunity, make sure they recognize that the annual police and fire picnic is coming up on Saturday, August 25th. We'll hear about it again from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I believe it's at St. Mary's again this year. Munson Park. Thank you. That's right. St. Mary's was a couple years ago. It's at Munson Park on August 25th. One of our last meetings, we had a presentation was given by DTE regarding the outage in that. And one of the things we did ask for a couple items. One was that turned out to be 238-page report. Council, we've not sent that on to you yet. It's a lot of detail, but we will if you'd like to read through it. I think it really gives some information. We'll pass it out electronically so you can see that. That's about where I'll just say the infrastructure work that needs to be done. And I haven't had a chance to look at it in detail myself, but it's going to be hard, I think, to decipher specific locations that might be impacting. But with that, one of the other items I want to announce here for those that are here and those that will be catching this on replay. One of the things that was sent by DT was the hotline number from Southwest Power Quality hotline number that was discussed at the meeting. That number is 888-397-4012. I'll repeat it. It's 888-397-4012, and I can pass this on to council as well. But of course, they encourage the customers to report the outages and real-time problems at the regular 800 number, which is 800-477-4747. So that's just a item that was asked for at the last meeting. They did forward that, and I will pass along that long report. It's a lot of detail. If you think that was detailed, I know I put in council packets a lot of SEMCOG information. So that was more items that are going on in SEMCOG from a broad perspective regarding road funding and the challenges that we know that we've heard of that from our state perspective and where some of the shortfalls come. And when you look at the road funding, the traditional funding sources, we're not that far off from where we are with other states. The difference is the other funding sources that are not permissible are not done within the state of Michigan, and there's where the significant drop is and why we are short in revenue. There's a lot of reasons people want to come up with why we have road problems or why things aren't getting fixed. But quite honestly, it comes down to revenue. And when we're restricted and hamstrung for getting revenue available that other states are providing, it's why we're last in the country on spending for roads. So look at that. If there's questions, we could always have SEMCOG would be willing to come down and speak if that's an item that the council would like as you look through the material. The other one I want to talk about kind of talks with Councilman Felder on the bicycle and non-motorized. The SEMCOG's announcement of the near $14 million that was put into walk and bike path projects and planning assistance, which of course that's how we got the funding for the telegraph corridor study. Long list, and of course SEMCOG has many counties. You look through that, I look at that and think of what we can put in for the future years, whether it's next year or the year after. And as we work through those with staff, what are our priorities in non-motorized and how do we write for those TAP grant dollars? And then there was the SEMCOG report on improving bicycle and pedestrian safety or travel and kind of where they are across the SEMCOG region. So I just want to provide that material that as it comes through from SEMCOG for the council's information. Of course, we have this available at City Hall as well for residents if they want to pick it up in the lobby also. I think that is all I have. And of course, vote. Clerk Lavoie, I know that's your message.
Yes, tomorrow is election day. It's primary election day, so you will have to vote one column on the ballot. If you spoil your ballot while at the precincts, we can give you another ballot and you can start again. Polls open at 7 o'clock, they close at 8 p.m. You just have to be in line at 8 p.m. and you will be able to vote. And if you have any question, call the clerk's office, 734-384-9136, and we will be there beginning at 5:30 a.m. Ready to help.
Thank you. Mr. Pastou, any comments?
Yes, Your Honor, a couple of them. Ironically, North Custer, we've been discussing internally. I think on one of my recent updates to you, I mentioned that the state has made 3 separate appropriations to expand road funding to throughout the state, and our share of it coming back to the city of Monroe is probably that we have about $250,000 extra from what we anticipated budgeting. Between Mr. Lewis and Mr. Sell and myself, we've had some discussion about actually looking at doing, if you will, a mill and fill type of log job for North Custer. We think we could fit that in this construction season. As you know, the county just recently had done their segment from the city limits westward on there. I think the time and certainly the condition of the road would probably be appropriate for us to consider that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that at our next work session on the 20th. But also related to that is, and I think Mr. Lewis has it on the next regular meeting agenda, is to talk about doing the rest of Front Street. As you know, we turned down the bids that we got from Harrison to Washington, but we're also looking at doing all 3. There was 3 segments of the project based on our federal urban aid program that we would have, and we're going to look at doing Telegraph all the way into Washington, and so we need to talk a little bit about how that fits in, how we'd go about financing it, and along with the North Custer project. So we'll talk about that at our next meeting. But the North Custer, we think we might be able to fit into this construction season with some of the funds. Mr. Sell and I had he sent an email responding to what we have available from our fund balance, the major street fund potentially with that. So the other thing with it is there's always been ongoing discussion about communication, and I think in fairness, certainly Jody has heard me mention it, but we could use another one. And again, from a need standpoint, she does a terrific job for us, works hard, very diligent in it, but the way the world is different, and how you try and reach to people in many different forms and media, that at times where I keep saying, I've reminded her, I said, well, I could use one more of you to get out the message that we need to get there. Of course, funding limitations are a part of that consideration, but clearly she does a wonderful job and works hard at what she does. But she'll be here, and we can talk a little further at the next meeting. But I think in fairness to her, given the amount of activity that we have and the message and the means that we need to get it out there, we could certainly use another helper in that capacity. So that's all I had for tonight. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Questions for the city manager. Next is citizen comments. Any comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir. To the podium, your name and address, please.
Honorable Mayor, Council, my name is Omar Furden, city member, 402 Scott Street, Monroe, Michigan. The reason for my comments today is I actually had 2 little comments I'd like to make. First comment is in regards to a program that we have started down at Arthur Community Center. I just wanted to inform the council and let you guys know what we are doing down there. It's pretty exciting. And my second thing was like to touch base with the Parks and Labor meeting that Mr. Mayor had mentioned earlier. I had a few little ideas about that, and after speaking to Councilmember Vining and Miss Loretta LaPointe, I believe her name is, I apologize if I messed that up, they both encouraged me to come and speak today. So with that said, I would like to start, and the first thing I'd like to talk about is the program that we started at the Arthur Community Center. What it's called is it's a Next Step program. Essentially what it is it's a support group for felons and convicts, or pretty much anybody who just needs help. In the community, we have a lot of support groups out there for NA or AA, but there's no real support group for people coming out and needing to re-enter society. So what we've started is the program, and our first meeting will be August 15th, it's Wednesday. We'll be holding them bi-weekly at the Arthur's Community Center from 5:30 to 6:30. pretty much what we're going to be doing at those meetings is we've reached out to various community organizations and asked for their assistance. What we'd like to do is be an hour-long meeting, and what we're going to do is in the beginning of the meeting, we're going to have opening statements and all that good stuff, opening greeting. And then after that, we'd like to proceed with guest speakers. For instance, our first meeting on the 15th, Anthony Hoskins, also I'm partnering with the director of the Arthur Community Center, reached out to Vancia, I forget her last name, I'm so sorry, at the Learning Bank. And she's going to come and speak to the people at the group about how to get their GED, what they can do to get education, what all the services they offer there. We've also reached out to Connie Cultural at the Friend of the Courts. She's going to come down and talk to people also about different services that can be done and things they can do. That way it's not just a complete... It's not always going to be about talking in your field. We're also going to offer services. After meeting with Councilman Vining, our second meeting, the 29th, she's reached out to MRS, Michigan Rehabilitation Services, to come down. We've contacted with Michigan Works, and Michigan Works has agreed to give job leads at our meetings. So when these people come for the meetings, we all plan to show them different speakers with different services that can be offered they can take advantage of to help reacclimate to society. We like to give them job opportunities, job leads, and just pretty much a little support and a little lean on each other. So the program is the Next Step program. It's at Arthur Community Center. It's bi-weekly, Wednesdays from 5:30 to 6:30. First meeting being August 15th, next meeting being August 29th, so forth, so on. What I have here, I also did, if any of you guys would be interested in it, I put together a little packet here, a little flyer. It has the DNA breakdown of the group, our mission statement, what we'd like to accomplish. It also has an outline of the meetings on how a typical meeting would like to go. I also included in here my name and my phone number if any of you guys would like to reach out. I know you guys have great connections. Hopefully you guys can reach out to me and we can partner together, bring more resources to the citizens, and do something positive. So once again, that's a Next Step, Arthur Community Center. Thank you. And that brings me to my second topic. I know time is of an issue. It's about the Labor Park, the open house meeting that we had. And after speaking to Miss Loretta and Miss Vining and the architect there at the meeting, I had a couple ideas. And I know that the city is renovating the 6 different parks. And I know a couple of different parks you guys have talked about doing a splash pad. We've talked about doing a splash pad at, I want to say, St. Mary's and Heck Park, I believe, are the 2 parks that are in the proposed plans from what I had seen. And those are great, and that's all fine and dandy. But what I just wanted to share my opinion about Labor Park. And hopefully that maybe you guys can consider Labor Park as being a park to put a splash pad in. The reason why I think Labor Park would be more of a suitable location for many reasons, or a few different reasons. For one, it ties into the historical trail. The city of Monroe has put a lot of money into the historical trail, with the Heritage Trail. We have the Winchester Street, we have Kentucky Street. Those are very historical to us. You know, if you notice Monroe's history, you know that those are great. And so when we build Labor Park, it will be a crowning jewel on this little trail, this little historical area. It not only does that, it uses it to tie the center into the community. If we put a splash pad there, it will bring more people down to the community, down to the east side. But more essentially, it will bring exposure to the Arthur Community Center, which essentially will give the city in return on their investment. The city of Monroe puts a lot of money invested into Arthur Community Center. I'm sure you guys know. But by bringing exposure to the center with different activities, it'd be great. A playground there is beautiful. By no means do I want to talk bad about a playground. But if you stand at that point, we are within a 10-minute walk from 4 different sets of swing sets or slides. So maybe that need isn't one that we may want to do there. But a splash pad would be perfect there. It would be cost effective. The other 2 parks that are being proposed are going to be out of the city's budget. But the Labor Park already has CDBG money right there. We already have money allocated. That's important because if some of the other budget issues that we're going to be facing in the city coming up down the road, that's going to be an issue. We're going to talk about budget. We're going to make hard decisions. And some of those may be pleasure. But if we already have money for the park at Labor Park being done, and if we're moving the parking lot, we're doing this big renovation to get rid of the right-of-ways, it leaves a lot of opening for stuff being done there. with the waterway being there already, with the water infrastructure being there, it wouldn't be too big of a leap. And since we're already doing construction, removing parking lot, it's going to be a big construction already being there. So it wouldn't be too much to do it. If a splash pad was put there, it could tie into the community center's already infrastructure, the water. Now, I wanted
Mr.
to know.
Vernon, did you provide those comments at the open house?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because that's where it's going to be collected.
Yes, sir.
And be brought back another time, so.
Yes, sir. And then they encouraged me to come and speak here.
Great.
I'm sorry. I'll wrap it up. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And so as a city member, I wanted to get my ducks in a row before I came and talked to you guys. So I called the nearest splash park that we have is in Brownstown. I spoke to the Brownstown director of Parks and Recreations as a citizen, not as no official capacity, and I was just curious what it costed them. They built one that's roughly about 3 times the size of what we're looking at, of the area that we could have, and they cost them $300,000. He spends an annual budget of $26,000 to maintain it. They charge a $2 entry fee. With that and party rentals in the evening, they generate $30,000. So it is slightly profitable. So the splash pad does not cost the city no money because the citizens paying the $2 entry fee to come into. So that's just an idea. But the director I spoke to was Mark Moxie at the Brownstown Parks and Recreation Department. He's the director there. He did want me to, as a citizen, he did say that if you guys were interested in looking at their facility or looking at how they did it, he would be open to giving a tour to the council. So I would hope you guys would look into that. And the reason why this community center, the last reason why it's open, or it's a good idea, is they also did that also to their community center. And what that allowed them to do is they didn't have to do no extra water. They didn't have to put a restroom facility. And for us to add a changing facility or something, it wouldn't be too much to do there. And with the labor park and the community center already being renovated, all that being part of it, I would just like you guys to consider maybe using the CBDG funds and the plans that are already been established from the 1970s proposal for the park, I believe that's when it was. And maybe we could put a splash pad in there. I hope you guys will look into it. Thank you for your time. And if you guys would like to, before I leave, if you guys leave, I have the little
Do you
packet
leave those
for
with the clerk and
Yes,
she'll
ma'am.
see they get disseminated? Thank you. Omar.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Other comments?
Your Honor, seeing no other comments, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Lamore to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Michelangelo,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.